elements that you're never going to see again, either in real life or in film, or at least
Yeah.
unlikely in our lifetime.
Well, I think also, if I can hop in real fast, I think part of the reason why we'll probably never see it again is because there's also a reality check to it that there wasn't capable of back in that time when it was made. Because, all right, so I'm looking at the rights to the movie was bought in 1969, and then basically took about 10 years. So we're still talking about a time that you can argue wasn't necessarily progressive. And I bring that point up because, like, we talked about our experiences going into the movie and like what it meant and like how it felt and things like that. And like from my family and families that, you know, we interacted with, which were all Black, like my dad's friends, my mom's friends, those families, all that, my extended family, like the churches, all that, it was always comical because it was always understood as basically a white person's view of what was going on in New York City. And the family members and friends that we had who were there were like, yeah, it's a fucking joke. Like, sure, you have people walking around with fashion past what the norm would be, but also we know that our fashion is going to be basically replicated in about 5 years from now, which is the funny part is think about the production time of the movie, then you cannot at all disassociate the fact that they're watching fashions basically years behind the trend and they're putting it into the movie because again, 10-year production time, you're going to be changing what you think should happen. There's always going to be rewrites when it comes to the storyboards. So with all that said, it was always from my family's perspective, it was just laughed at. It was kind of like, yeah, they would think that there's a bunch of people walking around, gangs looking like that. Instead, as Greg points out, it's really just a collection of people from the same neighborhood that are kind of like, hey, strength in numbers, and there's kind of some crazy things. Also, people can't forget the Guardian Angels, which actually has a bigger historical moment in NYC than people think. Fun fact, the reason why you cannot have nunchucks in New York City is because of Guardian Angels. But moving on, those guys started in 1979, but that's when they affiliated. So you know there's groups of basically white guys walking around with basically berets, shiny berets, and shiny member-only jackets, beating the shit out of people in the name of vigilante justice. Right. So there's so much of that kind of goes into the majesty of the imagery of the Warriors that makes it so awesome. Another parallel contemporary would be Starship Troopers, where when it gets launched and the initial crowd doesn't necessarily connect with both what the writer and director is trying to actually point out, because no matter what we are saying about the Warriors, it is impossible to say that it is not. I mean, it is definitely a complete sort of, I don't want to say protest, but it is literally sort of like we are against everything that has been happening, and this is sort of our take on it. It may not be perfect, but it's sort of against corporate America. Basically, white power structure. There's a lot of different things that imperfectly from the 70s, it's really trying to do. Yet the people who watched it initially didn't understand it or take it in the same way. In the very same way, I would argue, like we all know now, Starship Troopers, what the director was really trying to, or what the writer, not the writer, the director was really trying to take from the writer's material and flip it on its head was, hey, if we keep acting like this, sure, you can celebrate it, but actually we are basically moving into Nazi fascism type life.
I mean, let's talk about the baseball Furies.
The makeup.
Yeah. Wow. What are you doing? What are you fucking
It's like
doing?
You gotta pick one or the other, my man. You can either go full baseball uniform or you go to makeup. But
like y'all just look like you jumped off of a float of a parade that got canceled. Like what are you doing?
But
that was promoted by Kiss.
Right?
That's that. But it was Kiss. It's the Celts and the Picks. Right, Braveheart, which we got familiar with later on, but it's all of those things, right? It's that in the 70s.
It's the war paint.
It's the war paint, right?
Yeah,
they do that, and they're doing it to scare you and to shock you. And yes, Kiss was certainly in the, was playing shows and playing sold out arenas, but yet they've got the baseball uniform and they're carrying baseball bats and they ain't playing ball, right? They're coming after you.
Well, yeah, and we also can't remove the fact that during that time, Kiss also was emblematic of basically what was wrong in America and like leading to the devil, which is no way an accident in how it's portrayed.
If you didn't have Kiss, you wouldn't have Twisted Sister, and then where would we be?
Well, I'm going to bring it back around. I'm going to say our goodbyes here, but I just wanted to thank you both for coming out yet again for another meeting of the minds and great pop culture and how it ties back into the political and the now, and hopefully increasing our knowledge, increasing our understanding of one another. Greg, what you got to Star Child? What you got to lead us out with this week?
I like our topic idea for next week. I think I'm kind of feeling that. Two, it was that line in Birdman by Edward Norton that he was saying to the underage girl that he was soon going to have sex with, rape. And he said he wishes he could rip her eyes out and pluck her eyes into his head so he can see the city the way that she does. And I feel like that's kind of what the Warriors does for me. Like, it gives me a window into the New York that, is always going to be in my heart. You know what I mean? The underground hip hop, the underground art culture, the underground graffiti culture, all of those subcultures was all tied into and is in some way symbolically represented in the Warriors. And it's a beautiful time capsule. And just to remind you that, never forget that everything you love can kill you.
Now that's a sentiment right there. I love that. Rashawn, what you got to lead us out with this week?
I mean, I have to follow that. That's
somebody's got to.
I feel like the guy who did the Super Bowl after Prince. Like
better you than me. That's all I have to say.
I got nothing, man. I'm the three clubs. You're
three clubs, baby. Hey, man.
If I show up to the party, then chances are you probably need something better, but I ain't gonna lose it for you.
If you got 18, if you got 18, that three of clubs is real good to see right about that.
Real good.
Of course, you ballsy as hell. You ballsy as hell. Ask him to hit on that. So
that's what happens when you bank on the three of clubs. But, the Warriors is always a funny thing to me. It means a lot to me. It means there's kind of a weird sci-fi element to it when you watch it way too many times, because like the way they sort of move through the city, it's kind of cosmic to me. Also, it's hilarious because it's like a complete white version of what the city was during that time, but at the same time I applaud it, and it holds a special spot in my heart because no matter how it came out, you can definitely tell that the people behind it were really trying to make a statement, and it was counterculture. It stood with the people I like to sort of stand with when I look back at history, at the predominance in culture, like the people against Vietnam, the people against systematic racism, still leading the charge after the civil rights movement. There's so much that is indicative in that movie that I appreciate, and I hope that people would appreciate. And to my point, if you're holding it below Saturday Night Fever, again, you might want to watch it again, because there's no confusing it. It's straight up rape scenes and killing, and no hiding the stereotypes and racism. So watch the Warriors, you'll dig it.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I think I'll bring it on home and just say, definitely, if you haven't seen the film, check it out. Keep an open mind. Do know, of course, as we talked about and touched on, that it was from a different time, and there's some different value sets, different things being discussed there, and different things. But I think it's it's a window. I'd say to anyone who's listening to this, maybe in a more rural setting and thinking that's what cities look like, that there's some truth in there, and it's not all the truth. That there's a lot of reasons why people live in cities, and there's a lot of people why people live in more rural areas.
They wouldn't want to be judged by Deliverance, so it's okay.
Well, that's exactly it, But use those things to start a conversation. Use those things to think and ask, well, what's true, what's not, what's going on there,
or what conditions created
and what exactly,
or the Warriors. Because I think there's always a parallel and a unifying thing. You just look at that,
without a doubt,
or a person from the Appalachians or from the city. the conditions that got you there are probably the same.
That and therein is the great, potentially unifying factor if we can get the hell out of our own way. So,
like the man.
I'm gonna leave you off with that. Absolutely, continue to fight the power, continue to fight the man, gentlemen. Thank you so much again for joining me here for our discussions. In the meantime, you guys all keep working hard, keep that fire lit, and keep your head of steam on.
All right.